What's up, YouTubers? So a brand new video for you here, and this is not a belt review for a change. This is actually a sort of celebration video. Those that know or don't know, this past Sunday marked the 30 year that the Undertaker, aka Mark Calaway, had been part of the WWE universe. So what this video is actually going to be is sort of a rundown of the World Championships that he has won during his time in the WWE, and this is just solo single championships. I'm not going to give you an in-depth review on each championship. I'm going to give you a sort of in-depth, in my point of view, of him winning them, how long he had them for, and what they did for his legacy as a performer in the WWE and as in the wrestling world. This is kind of like my tribute to him. This is my tribute to you, Mark Calaway. This is a thank you to you for entertaining me ever since I was 7 years old. I'm now 36 this coming week, and you have entertained me more or less my whole life. So this is more a thank you to you, sir. So I'm going to start at the top. His very first World Championship, he won after a year of being with the WWE. He came in, coincidentally enough, 30 years ago yesterday, on Sunday, at the Survivor Series. He was a special partner for the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and nobody knew who he was, who was under the WWE fan base banner. They just saw him come out and see that he was quite intimidating at the time. And a year later, after his win over Jimmy Superfly Snuka at WrestleMania 7, and Vince McMahon felt that Hulk Hogan, who was the champion at the time, didn't have very many big contenders, so they actually put Mark Calaway, the Undertaker, with Hulk Hogan at the 91 Survivor Series. And the Undertaker ended up winning this, the Winged Eagle, which was his first major championship in the WWE. Unfortunately for the Undertaker, he lost it back to Hulk Hogan a couple weeks, within a week actually, because Hulk Hogan, being Hulk Hogan at the time, wasn't too happy with how the finish went down at the Survivor Series. So Hulk Hogan sweet talked Vince McMahon to basically give him his belt back. During that week though, I believe the Undertaker actually defended the belt against, I think it was against the British Bulldog twice, in fact, at house shows, and then going into the pay-per-view in San Antonio called Tuesday in Texas, the Undertaker and Hulk Hogan faced off against each other again. Unfortunately, like I say, for the Undertaker, Hulk Hogan actually won that match, and that sort of put a dampener on that title reign. But egg on the face of Hulk Hogan, because Vince McMahon actually stripped Hulk Hogan of the championship. So because there was too much going on around the championship at the time. Ric Flair was interfering too much to try and build a matchup with Hulk Hogan. The Undertaker was sort of just getting lost in the shuffle of the whole thing. The title was put up for grabs for the first time in this format at the 1992 Royal Rumble. But however, unfortunately, the Undertaker didn't win that match. It wouldn't be until now the Undertaker had faced off against whomever the WWF champion was throughout those years, from 91 to the next time that he won it. He went up against the likes of Yokozuna, who was the WWF champion at the time. He also went up against, I think he did have a one-on-one match with Kevin Nash. I think he did. I'm not too sure. I would have to go back and check that out. But I do know that he had quite a historical match with Bret Hart at the 1996 Royal Rumble. Great match, in fact. One of their best matches. And then through circumstances that somebody didn't want to play ball with this guy. This guy didn't want to play ball with this guy, so this threw the whole main event of WrestleMania 13 out the equation. So it came to be the main event of WrestleMania 13. It was actually Psycho Sid and The Undertaker going against each other for this. So those that have not seen the match, please go and check it out. It's, in my opinion, Mark Calaway's best title win, without a shadow of a doubt. Yes, he won it for the first time in 1991, but he didn't really get to savour the fruit of it all. And when he won this at WrestleMania 13, and in fact he's even said it in interviews after it, he sat in his hotel room, he laid the championship on the opposite bed from him, and he was just in awe to say that Vince McMahon had finally gave him the trust to carry the belt for the company again. So, in my opinion, one of the greatest wins for him as a world champion. And as you can see on this photo here, this is my favourite photo of him winning either world championship that he's had. Great photo, great match. So, unfortunately, The Undertaker didn't have a massive reign with it in 97 because of this guy and this guy again. So The Undertaker, being the bigger man, just ate the BS and let it play out. He unfortunately lost it to Bret Hart at SummerSlam in 97. But he did get a couple of times where he went and challenged for the championship again at the Royal Rumble 98, but he was entering a program with Kane at the time, Glenn Jacobs, and that storyline got played out more. So unfortunately, he never got to see this version of the WWE Championship again. He wouldn't get a shot at the championship again properly until his program with Kane was sort of mixing it up and fading away at the same time, where Kane and him were actually becoming a tag team with each other. This was the start of the Brothers of the Destruction storyline. And going into 98 with Stone Cold Steve Austin being the WWF champion, The Undertaker ended up challenging for this, the Big Eagle, and this one really suited him. The Winged Eagle suited him, but this belt suited him as well. He challenged Stone Cold Steve Austin at a historical match in Madison Square Garden at SummerSlam '98. He kept challenging over the few months for it, but unfortunately came up short quite a lot of the times. He didn't win the championship back until the May pay-per-view called Over the Edge in May 1999. The unfortunate event that happened where Owen Hart died, but the sort of the light at the end of the tunnel of that event was, for Mark Calaway anyway, was the fact that he got to walk away as the WWF champion again. He held for a couple of weeks though. They were actually debating whether or not to give the Undertaker his own theme belt, because Stone Cold Steve Austin was walking around with the Smoking Skull belt, and Vince McMahon and his people just felt it was we're in the era of gimmick belts for the World Championship, and the Undertaker was actually going to get his own theme World Championship. So for a couple of weeks he actually held the Smoking Skull belt, but then he found out he wasn't going to be champion for long, so he went back to holding this, and this looked better on him anyway than the Smoking Skull belt. So unfortunately he lost it towards Austin in late June on a Monday Night Raw, which was weird because going into their match at the Fully Loaded pay-per-view in July of 1999, I think it was a toss-up whether or not the Undertaker was actually going to lose the championship to Stone Cold Steve Austin at that event, but Stone Cold Steve Austin actually played Shawn Michaels card. Those that don't know what that means, I can get into it in another video for another time. So Stone Cold Steve Austin played the Shawn Michaels card, and he got the championship back a lot earlier than what he should have done, because going forward in '99 they were shooting for Triple H to win this eventually, and Vince McMahon felt that it was best that Austin was in the title picture with Triple H over The Undertaker. But going out of '99, we actually found out that The Undertaker was injured, so he sort of faded away, and then came back as the American Badass in 2000. Coincidentally enough, the very shirt that I'm wearing. So he came back as this in 2000 after he recovered from his injuries. He did wrestle quite a few times for this, but unfortunately he never got the chance to win it back. I think it was because Austin was still playing the Shawn Michaels card a lot of the time, and Triple H was playing sort of the Shawn Michaels card too. But The Undertaker, being The Undertaker, he is a man's man, so he just rolled with the dice and saw what happened. But in my personal opinion, when The Undertaker was the American Badass, and especially in early 2001, him and Stone Cold Steve Austin had great matches over this. So seeing him win this as the American Badass would have been pretty cool. But he would not. This was the last time was his third reign. His fourth reign would be a completely different championship altogether, because as we all know, in 2002 this faded away, unfortunately, and became this, the undisputed WWF WWE Championship. So the Undertaker fourth reign and final reign as the WWF WWE Champion came at Judgement Day 2002, where he, strangely enough, beat Hulk Hogan again for the championship. But if anybody has ever watched the match, from the Undertaker's point of view, it was okay. From Hulk Hogan's point of view, it was not the best Hulk Hogan match, because I think Hulk Hogan was still pretty sore about 1991. So the Undertaker, who was in his Big Evil stage at the time, Big Evil being his extension of the American Badass, Hulk Hogan asked for the Undertaker not to do his finish. Now, at the time, the finish for the Undertaker was either the Tombstone Pile Driver or the Last Ride, and Hulk Hogan said no to either of them. So the Undertaker ended up giving Hulk Hogan a chokeslam, and the chokeslam was, oh my goodness me, the chokeslam was it was bad. It was really, really bad. One of the worst chokeslam. In fact, there was quite a couple of them in the match, but the finish chokeslam, no disrespect to the Undertaker, but it was a bad chokeslam to finish the match on. But fortunately, the Undertaker got to have this championship. Now, here's a fun fact for you. Fun fact, Hulk Hogan, right, bear with me here, was the last World Wrestling Federation champion. This still falls under being the Undisputed banner, you know, it's all the same belt, so it counts, you know. So Hulk Hogan was the last World Wrestling Federation champion and the first World Wrestling Entertainment champion. However, the actual physical belt, which is this, okay, the Undertaker is the last guy to hold an official WWF logo World Championship, and the first person to hold a WWE logo championship. So there's a unique thing about The Undertaker. I don't think even The Undertaker has even touched on that in all the years. But there you go, Mr. Calaway. There's a fun fact for you about one of your title histories. So you are very, very unique, sir. You are extremely, extremely unique when it comes to your title reigns. In a good way, in a brilliant, brilliant way. Very good way, sir. So, like I say, he won this in Judgment Day 2002, but unfortunately, he didn't get to hold it very long. He lost it in the July pay-per-view in a triple threat match against Kurt Angle and The Rock, and The Rock ended up winning the championship. But during that time, the Undertaker was in and out of programs for this against the likes of Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle, and many other champions during that time. But just mostly Brock Lesnar, really, because the Undertaker was the only person that would play with Brock Lesnar, really. But going to the end of 2003, the Undertaker's American Badass and Big Evil persona sort of faded away due to the Undertaker recovering from injury. And the next time we would see the Undertaker was actually at WrestleMania 20, going full circle and coming back as the Dead Man. and he was facing off against Kane at WrestleMania 20. So the next time that The Undertaker would go for the championship, it was against JBL Bradshaw for the WWF WWE Championship at SummerSlam 2004. And so he did get to challenge for it a couple more times after that, when the championship was on SmackDown. But as soon as this championship faded away and became this, this moved to Raw, and the next championship that I'm going to talk about went to SmackDown. And when this became this, I think this was his own opinion. I want to say it was, but The Undertaker liked this because it was traditional. He did not like this because it was not him at all. It was not a traditional looking championship. So the next championship that he would go for was against Batista at WrestleMania 23, and he ended up going for this, the big gold, the one that was inherited when the WWE bought WCW. So The Undertaker challenged Dave Batista at WrestleMania 23 for this, and in my opinion he did it because this was a traditional looking belt. And if you look at it from one point of view, when he was in WCW in the early part of his career, this was the World Championship, and coincidentally enough, he got to have it. You know, obviously it was a few years later when the WWF WWE inherited the belt, but you know, that's pretty cool from one point of view, that that this championship was in one company, he moved to another company, and he ended up winning this. So that's actually pretty cool. It's another fun fact for you. So, like I say, he won this at WrestleMania 23, and if you look at this picture here, it is very, very similar to this picture for WrestleMania 13. And it was a historical pose, and one of The Undertaker's best wins. Unfortunately, this was not the main event. The Undertaker did win the Royal Rumble that year, and it should have been the main event, but unfortunately for him and Dave Batista, the main event were these two guys, so unfortunately never got to shine. I believe The Undertaker was vocal about that. Him and Dave Batista were vocal about that after the match, and a year later, find The Undertaker actually goes up against the Rated R superstar Edge for this in WrestleMania 24, and The Undertaker got his wish, and so did Edge. This was pretty big for Edge, actually, to be the main event of WrestleMania 24, and he faced Edge for this. So the previous reign, unfortunately, The Undertaker had to forfeit, was going to have to forfeit due to injury, but The Undertaker didn't really want to forfeit it. So they entered a program for Edge to get the Money in the Bank contract, and Edge ended up cashing it in on The Undertaker. The Undertaker got to go away and nurse himself back to health, and then going the next year, going into WrestleMania 24, he faced off against Edge. So The Undertaker got his revenge. And unfortunately, with all due respect, sir, it was not good for you with this championship, because this championship was sort of a curse to you at the start. Unfortunately for The Undertaker, he got injured not that long after WrestleMania 24, and he had to get the championship taken off him. He unfortunately would not win it again until October 2009, when he beat CM Punk at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, and he held it up until February the following year in the Elimination Chamber match. Now, anybody that's seen the Elimination Chamber match knows that the Undertaker had a very bad day there. Those that don't know or haven't seen it, now during this time, the Undertaker's pyro for his entrance was the raising of the flames, sort of like the flames raising from hell. That was part of his gimmick, part of his entrance when he was walking out. And leading up to the pay-per-view, he actually said to the pyro guys, the main pyro guy, look, the flames are a bit too close to where I'm walking down the entrance. Could you sort of like space them out a little bit? And the pyro guy, I do not think paid attention, because on the pay-per-view, on the day, luckily, and The Undertaker has actually said this in an interview, The Undertaker dosed himself in water before he went out, and The Undertaker was in his full hat, trench coat, dead man gimmick. He was going to actually wear his short-sleeved Lord of Darkness jacket, but thankfully he didn't. So The Undertaker walks out, and the flames were far too close to him, to the point where it engulfed him. He turned, the other flame on the other side engulfed him as well, but the man was savvy enough to just walk forward and take his gear off. I think the belt must have gotten a little bit singed as well. It must have been. It must have. Get into the pod of the Elimination Chamber, and throughout the whole 20 minutes, keep this in mind, the guy was in there for 20 minutes on fire. Literally on fire. The Undertaker had to ask for bottles getting thrown into him every so often to douse his skin, because, you know, his skin was on fire at the time, you know. And unfortunately, I don't know if the finish was to go down how it meant. I think The Undertaker was meant to win the match. I'm not sure. But he certainly was not winning that day. Certainly not. He was in no condition to. I mean, the guy was in that pod for 20 minutes, dosing himself in water, keeping in character, keeping in mind, or at least trying to, and he went and done the rest of the 20 minutes that he was in that match. And the finish happened. Shawn Michaels interfered and he lost the match. But like I say, I think The Undertaker was meant to win. I'm not too sure. I'm not sure whether or not his and Shawn Michaels' match at WrestleMania was meant to be a title match. I'm not sure. But, you know, more power to him, you know. But let's just say that the pyro guy was not a pyro guy very long for the WWF WWE after that, because The Undertaker has said, I think he even told the referee that was looking after him, I think he told him to tell Vince that the pyro guy better be gone when the Undertaker got back through the curtain at Gorilla. So let's just say I don't think that guy works for pyro anymore. Does not work for being a pyro guy anymore. Especially not if you had the Undertaker after you. So, overall, this is how it's went. Okay, so The Undertaker has held this 1, 2 times. Okay, he's held this. He has held this for his 3rd time. Awesome belt. Then he has also won for his 4th time. He has won this, and this was the last time he was the WWE champion. Okay, and then the next 3 times he held this. So, you know, that's pretty cool. That is some legacy, sir. So I'm just gonna hold these two together. Yeah, so that's some evolution for being world champion. You know, that's crazy. It's unbelievable. You know, 7 times the Undertaker's been world champion, and that means a lot. Lucky 7, you know. Where you have the likes of Ric Flair or CM Punk, John Cena, sorry, not CM Punk. I don't know why CM Punk's in my head. John Cena or Triple H or Randy Orton. You know, 7's a good number for the Undertaker. 7's a good number for anybody. So I say this directly to you, sir. Thank you so much for entertaining me, entertaining my friends, entertaining the world. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for the 30 years that you've entertained us as the dead man, the man from the dark side, the American Badass, the Big Evil, the Full Circle, Undertaker, the Lord of Darkness, all of it. Sir, Mark Calaway, Undertaker, thank you very much. So guys, I'm just going to leave it here. From me to you, Undertaker, stay safe, sir. Stay awesome. And good journey.